This is the 8th episode of The Three Amigos. We are Peter Freuwine. Hello, Peter.
Hello.
We are Richard Dillman. Hello, Richard.
Здравствуйте. Здравствуйте.
Dasvicha. And I am Regis Tremblay. As I said, this is the 8th episode of The Three Amigos. We are three American expats living in Russia. Richard for some 10 years, Peter for about 2 years, and I have been here for almost 6. We have a special guest tonight. He's an American expat living in the Republic of Georgia. He's an amazing person. He's an artist. He's a maverick artist, he claims. He's a philosopher. He's a geopolitical analyst. He's a blogger commenting on almost everything. Victor-Hugo Vaca Jr. Victor, welcome to the Crazy House.
Three amigos plus one. And thanks for that introduction. I've been called a lot worse. So thank you. Those were very nice things to say.
Well, it's good to see you again. You've been on the show a couple of times, and we're very happy to have you tonight. And what we would like, Victor, is what is going on here in Russia. There's a war. They call it a special military operation in Ukraine. It's been going on almost 4 years now. I'm sure you are aware that the United States has used soft power and now hard power, military aggression towards Russia. But what we would like to know tonight is what the heck has the U.S. been doing in the Republic of Georgia in terms of its soft power? Because all we get are little clippets of news from time to time about what's happening there. So, Victor, I'm going to throw it over to you. Give us a little bit of a background first about yourself, why you're there, how long you've been there, and then what the heck is going on in that country.
Well, I was a whistleblower in the class of 1993, serving alongside Carter Page at the U.S. Naval Academy. And I received an honorable discharge because I was the only one who actually spoke out, having witnessed the sexual assault of a female midshipman officer. That's when I realized that there's toxic leadership at the highest levels of the U.S. military. In order to get up in rank, even though they said you should not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate anyone who does, it's just the opposite. In order to move up in rank, so all the highest ranking, and I say all with conviction, because pretty much there's no way you can get to the highest ranks of the Pentagon or any level of decision making in the US government. I can't speak for other governments, but it seems like we are in the end times because we've normalized lies. And when people look up to these false idols that we have, like President Trump and stuff, who tells people that he's going to stop the war within 24 hours in the Ukraine, and here we are ramping it up. Same thing in Gaza. I realized at a very early age that we were in trouble. The problem is, I was told to go into hiding because my life was in danger, because that was around the time of the United Nations Agenda 21, which is now Agenda 2030, which is a depopulation plan. So I realized when I was at the Naval Academy that I was being groomed to not be someone serving my country, but rather to be someone that would help in depopulating my country. So I was being trained and groomed to be a traitor. So anyway, now here, fast forward, I ended up getting an invitation to be a cultural ambassador and live in China, inside communist China, for 10 years with the modern art music movement, which is the fusion of art, music, film, fashion, literature, and education, fostering peace, love, and compassionate wealth worldwide. And as the founder of that, I was invited to work with masters in China, not only to do sculptures on a very large scale, but also to create works of art on canvas and also on film. And what happened was I received a letter from the State Department telling me that I had 48 hours to escape or that my life would be in danger because I could be held as a political prisoner or killed. This was during the Wuhan virus outbreak. So I managed to escape 2 hours before the last border closed on the day that the Wuhan virus whistleblower, Dr. Li Wenlang, died. Since all the borders were closed, the only one I was able to get out to was Istanbul, Turkey. From Istanbul, Turkey, I ended up here in the Republic of Georgia, where the borders were then closed. And I've been, I don't want to say stuck here ever since, because I believe that I was put here for a reason. I'm one of only two journalists from the United States that are actually on the ground reporting the truth of what's going on. And the truth is that the United States, first through US aid, but now through NGOs, have been fueling color revolutions here in this country. I'm surrounded by CIA agents, mercenaries, snipers. This place that I'm in is like the Hotel Continental in the movie John Wick. This is where terrorists come to vacation. I literally am sometimes sitting next to uh, assassins, and they tell me their stories, or snipers, and they share the stories of over 1,000 people that they've killed. And but even killers need vacation. So this is where they come to vacation. And yeah, the United States is all over this place. And what it's doing is it's fueling the Western culture here. But fortunately, this is an Orthodox Christian country and they seem to be fighting back. I noticed that there are a lot more gays here. And that was something that they tried doing with the, this is all goes to the US Embassy that are fueling these false flags and gay pride. They started with the Gay Pride Day, then they tried to move it to Gay Pride Week, but the journalist that was covering that got beaten to death. And that sent a signal out to everybody here that these people are not going to tolerate it. And the reason why they killed the journalist was because they said, you guys are fueling this propaganda and we don't want it here. So anyway, the Georgian, forgot what the name of the party is that won here, but they've been winning and they've been winning solidly. So what the US does is they pay outside agitators to come in and create a spectacle in front of the parliament. And then, of course, all the cameras are there, and it makes world news. It makes it seem like Georgia's on fire, but in fact, it's just a small area. When you're outside of that area, everybody is calmly living their life, and really, people here just want to be left alone. This is one of the oldest civilizations. They're a Christian country. They want to be left that way. They don't want the outside influence. But there's a lot of money laundering going on here. And that's also what's happening. The money from the Ukraine is being funneled here. There's skyscrapers going up everywhere. Lord knows who's moving over here. But yeah, it's just pumping money into this economy through the casinos. And yeah, the United States is really trying to create discord here. And also, Israel is a big part of this because Israel controls the United States, which is what I found out being here as well. They need Azerbaijan, they need Armenia, and they need Georgia because of its strategic location on the Black Sea. And also, if you're going to fight the war in Iran, you're going to need the airspace over Azerbaijan and Armenia. So that's why this gateway country is so pivotal and influential in what's happening in the world right now, even though most of the world doesn't even know that this small country with a population of less than 2.5 million exists. So that's it in a nutshell. And I've been covering this story unlike anybody else because I've realized in so doing that there's a lot of controlled opposition in the so-called alternative news media and truth teller arena. There's a epidemic of compulsive liars in the truth teller arena. They're feeding people sweets and telling them lies. And I've been on several shows, SGT Report, Stu Peters. I've been on with Mike Adams. And then I found out that they're just feeding people sweets and telling them lies. And so I've exposed all this, which has not made me very popular in the community. But, you know, the lies are what got us into this mess. And we've got to shed light on the darkness so that the darkness cannot overcome it. So thank you, Regis, for allowing me to give a synopsis of my perspective of what's happening right now and how it impacts Russia.
Wow. Um, Victor, I have to ask you right off the bat. Um, Thank you for that summary
Mhm.
of what's going on there. But is your life in danger at all there?
Yeah, but all of our lives are in danger. That's why I'm living without fear, because the thing is, we're all in danger if we don't snap out of this and we don't start speaking the truth. What shocks me is how people are so afraid. They don't understand the the population plan is for everybody. It's to keep 500 million people alive. So if
Yeah.
you're not part of that club, then you're just a slow kill. So you better wake up. And if you're afraid of dying, we're all going to die, Regis. So what's the fear?
Well, we're in the same boat, Victor Hugo. The three of us have come to Russia. We are very pro-Russian for a variety of reasons, mostly all the same. But what I didn't know or I didn't remember, because I had you on another show of mine, uh, whether it was Global Conversations or Dateline News and Conversation, I didn't realize the magnitude of what you have done in terms of being a whistleblower, a Naval Academy cadet, and then living those years in China. I find that incredibly amazing. Um, Now, I want to ask you another question, and then maybe Peter and Richard will want to jump in. Uh, who was it specifically that threatened you when you were in China? Uh,
I wasn't threatened when I lived in China. As a matter of fact, I felt very safe in China. The people of China were very good to me, and I did not want to leave. The reason I left was because, like I said, I received a message from the U.S. State Department telling me I had 48 hours to quite literally change the course of my life. When I was living in China, I was staying in five-star hotels, meeting with billionaires and advisors to Xi Jinping, and they were so kind to me. The people of China are really not the evil people that the US propaganda describes, just like I would imagine living inside of Russia. They're not the monsters. So I had to make that choice, and my choice was to live. Now, being here, once I got here, there's a thing called the Huaiping Wang Army. Huaiping Wang is a name like John Smith in the United States. Most people are named Huaiping Wang. Anyway, I didn't realize it at the time, but the guy who organized my escape from China was named Huaiping Wang, but there were strings attached. I would have to go on television throughout Europe, starting in the Republic of Georgia, then the Czech Republic, then Austria, then Holland, France, England, back to the United States. And I was supposed to go on television and talk to newspaper reporters. They had all the propaganda set up for me to say, no, it's not the Chinese, it's not the Chinese virus, stop being racist against the Chinese and everything. And so when I came on Georgian television, I was live and I was able to speak the truth. So they couldn't censor me and they couldn't control what I was saying. So Huaiping Wang said, you're not allowed to say what you were saying. And I said, well, you can't say anything. I'm not in China anymore. And so he says, well, you have to say what we say. So anyway, I went to the newspaper and the newspaper was interviewing me and I was telling them that China has infiltrated the United States government, the school system, the White House, the Congress, the Senate, just like APAC. And I knew this because the people in China, they bragged to me about this. They were open about it, just like the Israelis are bragging about it. The United States is the bitch of Israel and China. If you haven't figured that out yet, I mean, I don't know what rock you're living under. So I wasn't really saying anything that was unknown to me, at least. But when the article came out in the Batumi News, it was a fluff piece about me being an award-winning filmmaker and a maverick artist and the founder of the modern art music movement. And I confronted the reporter. I said, listen, I just gave you like information that was very important. and you created a fluff piece. I said, I appreciate all the nice things, but where are all the stuff that I was telling you about the spies and the COVID and all this stuff? And then I got a contact, actually, I got a 2 hour interview with a producer from CBS News 60 Minutes in New York because they found out that I was one of the last Americans to escape China. They interviewed me for 2 hours, and all the warnings that I gave them didn't fit the narrative. So they never aired the interview, which is ironic. I got interviewed for 2 hours on 60 Minutes and it never aired. So then things started clicking in my mind. I was like, wait a minute, this is a psyop here because I'm telling people the truth and then they're completely inverting the truth and putting propaganda out there. And then the final straw was when Huai Ping Wang told me, hey, listen, you're going to be rich and famous. We're going to make you the guy who's going to be selling the personal protective equipment, the masks. You're going to be doing the deal with the governor of California for the face masks, which I think was like a $500 million deal. And then they told me that I was going to be selling the vaccines. And this was in February of 2020. So I said, wait a minute, you've got vaccines for this already? I said, most people don't even know that this thing exists. So there were things that went off in my mind, and then they put me in contact with the owner of the companies and everything. And so, like I said, they wanted me to sell my soul, but I didn't want to have any part of that. So that's when the death threats started because they told me, and I'll never forget this because it's true. They said, well, listen, if you don't do it, we'll find somebody who will. And that's how this world is. There's always somebody who's willing to sell their soul. And so I stayed here. I didn't go with them to the Czech Republic. And then I started getting death threats, which is how I started this podcast because I originally was not a podcaster. I started it because I wanted people to know that I am not suicidal. I wanted my family and friends to know because they were saying they were going to throw me off a high-rise building, that they were going to stab me while I'm walking down the street or shoot me. I was posting all the death threats so that people could see what was going on. And the podcast ended up evolving into something that now is really been seen by millions of people. And like I said, I've been on some of the biggest shows because this is a new frontier, this podcast art form. And I'm really excited about it because I'm bringing in whistleblowers who don't have other platforms to go on. They're coming on the show, breaking news, and I'm meeting people like yourselves who are telling stories that are untold. And so, yeah, it's been an amazing ride. And the reason why I continue to do it is because I'm living without fear, not because I'm some kind of Superman, but because I have faith in the creator and in the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. And I was put here for a purpose. And I'm living a purpose-driven life. And with that, I feel exuberant. I feel excited. And I feel just I'm not afraid, put it that way. Okay. Doesn't mean I'm not human and that I don't, like, if I see a snake or something like that, I'm not going to try to protect myself. I have my instinct, but I'm not afraid of these threats because there's a reason why they let me live. Because right now there's a balance going on. There's a spiritual battle between good and evil. And I do believe that good in the end will win. And the way that we win is by shining light on the darkness, by exposing the lies. And that's what I'm doing. Thanks to you guys bringing me on your show. Thank you.
Well, Victor, it's not going to be the last time. Uh, I'm just wondering now if Peter, who's meeting you for the first time, has any comments or questions. I know you and Richard have been friends for a long time. So, Peter, what are your thoughts? Do you have any questions? Do you have any comments to make about what we've just heard from this amazing story?
Wow. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I do. I'm so grateful that you have the courage to do what you're doing. This is the one of the big reasons I came to Russia is um, at the very beginning of COVID, I was still kind of sleepwalking in early 2020, but things very quickly for me didn't make any sense about what was going on in the US. You know, how they were pushing the vaccines and how they were basically, you know, forcing lockdowns. And so that for me, the early 2020 kind of was the start of the wake up. And then it took me about 2 years. When I first started seeing it, I just couldn't believe, you know, the what the government was doing. And then after about 2 years, it became pretty clear that, yeah, exactly what you said, that the U.S. government is, at this point completely corrupt. And by early 2023, I'm like, okay, I can't support this nonsense anymore, including what I was seeing this our support, the U.S. Government support of what was going on in Ukraine. I saw that um, that was completely. Um, I agree with you. Right now we're in this is a battle between good and evil, and that became very clear to me. So I came to Russia in July of 2023, and since that time, it's even been more confirmed in my mind how good Russia is and how good the Russian government is, and they really do, I believe, in want to move the world in the right direction. And I'm so glad you've done what you've done because it shows a lot of courage. But I understand where you're coming from because I think right now, um, everyone in the world is being given a choice. You have to choose. You can't sit on the fence any longer. You have to choose between good and evil. And I chose good, and that's why I came to Russia because like I'm not going to support what the U.S. government's doing anymore. Um, I believe the Russian government is moving, but not just Russia, but the world in the right direction. And for me, it took a lot of courage to come here. I left all my friends and family behind. I tried to encourage all of them to come before I left, but they're still sleepwalking. And I think very soon now, within months, and definitely I think in sometime maybe next year, we're going to see some event that will wake people up and force them to choose between good and evil. And I don't know how this is going to play out. I'm not encouraged. One of the reasons I left is I'm not encouraged about what I'm even seeing now in the U.S. because most people in the U.S. are still sleepwalking, including my friends and family. Which is this is, but this has been one of the emotionally hardest things I've ever had to do coming to Russia because I see all the good here in Russia, but I see our country imploding. And so my heart is breaking for America. But every single day here in Russia, I see very kind, good Christian people, and the Orthodox Christian Church is very strong here, and it's right now Russia is the like the U.S. was in the 1950s. It's still um, very conservative and good. So I thank you for your bravery in doing this. I think it takes um, we're gonna have we're having to choose, and I've made my choice, and I'm still trying to work on friends and family to like, okay, you got to get out of that cesspool because it's not good.
Thank you, Peter. Richard, you've been a longtime friend of Victor Hugo. You got any comments?
Well, yeah. Well, I'd like to ask Victor about the recent protests and stuff that was going on in Tbilisi a couple of weeks ago. I did watch a video he had with a gentleman. I believe he was Russian, but I'd also like to ask Victor, what's the attitude of the people from Georgia, from Georgia, for Russian people? Or and about Russian uh, people that fled the war and they're still over there. Has he been talking to any Russians uh, in Batumi or anywhere in the country to Russians about about the SMO and that type of situation? But I'd like to know what happened a couple of weeks ago. I'm pretty sure that was a false flag, but if he could tell the audience, I think the people should know the truth of what the recent violence was over there in Tbilisi a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, again, that was U.S. false flag operation with the CIA working out of the United States Embassy, which is the CIA haven. And instead of US aid, because of the whole Doge thing, they still have NGOs. The money's still being laundered. Don't be fooled by what you're seeing with the Doge and this and that, the other thing. It's all theater. Remember, they were supposed to audit the Federal Reserve. They were supposed to audit Fort Knox. Everything that they said they were going to do, it's just feeding people sweets and telling them lies because the people in the United States of America are consumed with materialism. That's why, Peter, your family and mine, they decided to stay there because they don't understand. We're living in a spiritual world. There's multiple dimensions here that most people can't see. CERN has found 17 so far, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. We're living in a frequency. We're living in the ether. And so the people in the United States are consumed with fame, which is what is fame, really? And materialism, products that have a short lifespan because nobody makes anything that lasts long anymore. And then the Babylonian magic trick of wealth, the money. Like I said, they wanted me to sell my soul for money. But then the thing is, once you sell your soul, you're always part of that club. It's like being in the cabal or the mafia. You can never get out. So you're not free. You're a slave. And what I'm noticing being here with these Georgians, they're more family oriented. When I first got here, I was homeless. I was living on the beach, and people took me in, even though they don't speak English and I don't speak their language. We were in a one-bedroom place, six people, and we took turns living and sleeping on the couch. And then every day, people woke up and they called to see who had food because they bring the food in from the village. They have the farms. And whoever had food that day, the feast was there. So we did have the sound of hunger, which is something that people notice here. They laugh because they hear the stomach grumbling and they were like, oh, okay, welcome to Georgia. You know, you're one of us now. But then they said, don't worry about it because we will feed you. And they took me in. It was just so beautiful. You don't see that in the United States. There's homeless people in the United States. I don't see homeless people here. That doesn't exist. There's love here because they're living. Yeah, don't get me wrong. They like the material stuff. I've never seen anything like it in China. Boy, that's conspicuous consumption. There's purchasing going on all the time there. They've become like the United States in the 80s, is what China's like. But getting back to your question, Richard, yeah, that was a false flag operation paid for by NGOs. Outside agitators were brought in to storm the parliament to make it look good for the media outside. But the people of Georgia, they were not involved in it. When you went outside of the parliament area, everything was fine. People were just going about their business. And so, again, it's like the Mossad agent told CBS News 60 Minutes. We are the producers. We are the directors. We are the screenwriters. We have the actors. We are, you're watching you're watching a movie. They're the producers. Israel produces these films. A lot of these things that you see are productions, film productions. Who owns Hollywood? Who controls all that stuff?
Yeah.
And then who owns the media? So they feed that to you. But when you're on the ground, you realize, wow, I didn't even know it was going on. That's how little I knew. Somebody told me. I said, oh, really? And then I did a couple of interviews and got to the bottom of it. Didn't last long. Your other question, Rich,
Just about the Russian
yeah,
people that
okay,
fled the war and
yeah,
because
let me,
I
I'll
remember,
address
yeah,
that.
I remember, was it last year, a cruise boat from the Black Sea, Russian port to Sochi, I believe it is, pulled into Batumi, and they had all these uh, protesters, and they they gave the Russian visitors a hard time, so the boat just didn't park in Batumi and took off. Do you remember that one?
It's a love-hate relationship here. It's really strange because on the
Yes,
one
some
hand,
like, some don't.
these people speak Russian. They are Russian. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
it's the same thing
yeah,
with Ukraine. Ukrainians and
yeah, yeah.
Russians like family. But what happens is, of course, not everybody understands the history and they just it's cool to like hate the Russians, but I'll tell you what
Yeah,
they don't hate. They don't hate the money that these Russians are bringing. These Russians have
yeah,
so money into the economy, and I tell that to these Georgians. I'm like, wow, they move out of their apartments because the Russians come in and pay them 3 to 4 times the amount of money that they would get
the
normally
tourists.
because
Yeah,
no money. I go, wait a minute. I go, on the one hand, you're saying, you don't like the Russians. I go, but you like their money, don't you? And they say, yeah, you're right. So they end up moving to the village and they let the Russians rent their place. And the Russians have come in here and they're business oriented. Again, God bless these Georgians. They're great, but they're lazy and they know it. I'll tell you the quick story. There's a Georgian and he's sitting in a hammock between two apple trees and an American shows up. He's like, "Hey, listen, I'll give you $1 if you just grab me one of those apples from your tree." And the Georgian guy's like, "Nah," he stays in the hammock. And so the American goes, "Listen, I'll give you $10. Just grab me an apple from the tree." Georgian guy goes, "Nah," and he stays in the hammock. So finally, the American goes, "Listen, I'll give you $100,000. Just give me an apple from the tree." And the Georgian goes, "Nah." The American goes, "I don't understand. If I gave you $100,000, you'd never have to work another day in your life, really." And the Georgia guy goes, "Yeah, but I'm not working right now. So, what's the point?" So that's the whole thing. And that's why this country doesn't get invaded because these people, when I first got here, I had all the screenplays and stories ready that I was going to do in China. I met with the top executives of the TV channels here, and I was like, "Hey, man, listen, look, I got this whole production. Let's do it." And they were like, "Victor, listen, we love your idea and we know it's great. But the thing is, we're making more money from the World Health Organization, the United Nations, and the United States giving us money to spread this propaganda." They literally said this to me, like without shame. It's amazing how these people are like just so brazen. And they said,
Wow.
"So, it's thank you, but no thank you," they said. And that's also when I
mm,
realized I was like, wow, they're spreading the fear. The US, the UN, the World Health Organization is paying these channels to tell people, stay 6 feet apart, wear the mask, take your jabs. Again, we're living in a material world. So they spread the propaganda, hate the Russians, but love their money, and that's how it is. They've got a love-hate relationship. But I see Russians with Georgians, couples. I see Ukrainians with Russians. The whole hate thing is propaganda. It's not human nature. We're supposed to love one another. And that's what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing the fake hate against the Russians, but oh, okay, you're cute, I'll date you, or you're
yeah,
cute, I'll marry. So it's they're all family rich. They have a
yeah,
love-hate
yeah,
relationship.
yeah, yeah.
Any family. you know? So that's that.
So, Victor, I have a question for you. You've mentioned a couple of times you came with these video productions or TV productions already. Have you published any of that anywhere? And if so, where can we find it?
I haven't because they're stuff for movie productions that would cost millions of dollars to produce. That's why I was living in China. It's a planned 7 movie series. What's interesting is I originally planned to make it in the United States. It's called The Story of Jesus Trials, which is based on my personal experience with Judge Donald W. Heffiel, who presided over the Jeffrey Epstein trials in the United States. And I met this person because of a tenant of mine who got high on crack, went to work, got on his desk, and proclaimed to his employees that he was the new Messiah and that they were now his disciples. So that's how the name Crackhead Jesus came about. But I also realized, and I'm realizing now more than ever, that there is a subculture within the Christian community known as satanic Christians. And they're the ones that are the evangelicals who are promoting God's chosen people without letting people know that the God that these people who call themselves Jews but are not, are of the synagogue of Satan. Their God is actually Lucifer, the father of
Yeah.
all lies. So you've got these Christians, so-called, again, satanic Christians. They worship Lucifer under the guise of being a Christian, and they promote genocide of all non-Jews. They have the Schofield Bible, which is completely corrupted, and
Yeah.
they've all quoted lies as if Jesus, rather than saying, because again, if you believe it, when they asked Jesus, "What is the truth?" he said, I am the truth. I am the truth. I am the light.
Yeah.
So these and one in particular that I've exposed, who I had on my show, and I give people the benefit of the doubt. People warn me about this guy, but I noticed that one of the things that is happening with the podcast is people show their true colors. So there's a guy named Dustin Emos who turned out to be the Q guy. He was the guy that was getting people in the United States to sit down and just let the patriots take control, that the white hats are in control, and that everything's going to be fine. Then it turns out the guy's got like this huge rap sheet. So it turns out that what the government does, the CIA, they get people who are charismatic but have tremendous rap sheets. I mean, the guy's got felonies up the wazoo. So they say, okay, listen, we'll make a deal with you. Either you stay in jail for a long time, or we'll make you rich and famous. You'll be the Q guy. So all of a sudden, this guy with felonies is hanging out with the Flynn family, General Michael Flynn, going to Mar-a-Lago, where Trump is. So, why would the CIA and people allow somebody with a pretty extensive criminal background that close to Trump? Then they figured, okay, people aren't buying the Q anymore, so they turned him to Jesus. Now he's a Jesus freak, but now he's got his own cult. He's the modern Jim Jones of Jonestown, and he's promoting violence. He's promoting lies, and yeah, it's pretty intense what's going on. So yeah, I'm getting death threats because I'm exposing this stuff, but it needs to be exposed because worse than the Jews, people say, it's the Jews, it's the Jews, it's the Jews. It There's more satanic Christians out there. There's more satanic Christians, and they're doing the bidding of the Jews. So that's what I've exposed, and that's what I've been focused on right now. And it turns a lot of people off. I get it. There's a lot of Christians who are upset at me because they're like, "Oh my God, how can you say that they're satanic Christians?" I'm like, "Well, if you don't see it, then you may be one." And
Yep.
nobody likes to be called out. But that's the way I'm. What do you think about that, Regis? Because you were a man of the cloth. Do you notice these satanic Christians?
Um, well, here's how I'd answer this. I've given up on religion totally, completely.
Yeah.
Um, I'm living in a very Christian country, uh, which I think uh, is not a bad thing, but still, religion has always been about control. Now, I've been
Yes.
reading a lot about these evangelical Christians in the United States, um, and I agree with you. They're not Christians. Um, they are really part of a cult, satanic, if you will. Um, so I'm very concerned about it. And you mentioned something earlier, Victor-Hugo. You said we're living in a spiritual time, and there are many levels of this reality that most people are not aware of. And there's the difference between religion and spirituality. Religion is a control mechanism that tells people what to think, what's good, what's wrong. Follow these rules and you'll be okay. Spirituality, for me, is a totally different thing. Spirituality is trying to be connected with everybody and everything, not only on this planet, but in the universe. And I don't know if there's life after death, what that really means, but I do think there are different levels of consciousness and awareness that can only be explored through spirituality. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, Victor, but that's kind of how I look at it. I think that what's happening in the world today, it's a world of lies. And I like the way you put it. Satan is the father of lies. He is the ultimate liar. And I do think that what we are being faced with is an onslaught of evil that is made up of lies, that is made up of all of the killing and murder uh, and violent activity that is really engrossing most of the rest of the planet. The three of us are really concerned with that. I do want to point out, and I'll let Peter and Richard have a say here in just a second. The life that you're describing in Georgia uh, is really quite different, I think, than here in Russia, at least for the three of us. Um, I think we've been completely free to move about, to express our opinions, to counter the American narrative, to counter the lies wherever they're coming from. The three of us basically do that um, continuously. We do it together on this show. We've done it on my other shows, and yet we're nobodies. Uh, I've produced in the almost 6 years I've lived here over 650 podcasts, videos, and major films promoting Russia, life here in Russia, and countering the American lies and narrative. And yet, I've received no threats yet. I know Peter and Richard have not received any threats. So um, we don't. Well, as I said, we're nobodies. We're just a little blip out there, probably on nobody's radar. Unlike yourself, who is a whistleblower and who's done some really significant things in your life in China, well, the United States, China, and now Georgia. Now, I want to ask you another question. What is your political status, your legal status in Georgia right now?
Well, that's interesting because there are people right now, primarily these satanic Christians. Those are the ones who are wanting me dead, who are putting out death threats. So it's a whole new Jesus out there. Jesus is like cool with lies and assassination. So that's kind of strange. But
Yeah.
I'm a primary witness in a terrorism case with the Huaiping Wang. So the government told me, and when I went to the police, they said, no, you're a witness. You have to stay because we're going to be doing this and you're the primary witness. So you can't leave. So I'm like, okay, that was what the police chief told me. So I have that. Now, there are people in the United States who are trying to get the Georgian government to extradite me because apparently, I don't know if you've heard of this guy, Jim Fetzer. He's the Sandy Hook, nobody died at Sandy Hook guy. And he has a show. And I used to go on his show. But then I found out that this guy was involved in the Sandy Hook treason along with Alex Jones, who I also used to like. Alex Jones, listen, he says 80% truth, but he keeps 20% lies. That's how controlled opposition works. They give you some of the stuff, they direct you in this way so that you don't look this way. Well, I look this way because that's where the truth is. Over here is the sweets. So anyway, I started following that. I was the only journalist who was following that. And the way that I do my podcast, which you could find at the victorhugocollection.com, you scroll to the bottom of the page, you'll find my links on Rumble and BitChute. I take clips of what these people say in their own words. I take their lies and I post their lies with receipts because I bring receipts. And that's the only way to expose these lies is with evidence, because otherwise I'm noticing that there's a habit that people have now. They're saying a Sandy Hook source told me. They never tell you who the source is, but they put the word Sandy Hook in front of it. And that's like, ooh, if Sandy Hook source said it, then it must be true. The Sandy Hook source has told people that I am a Mossad agent, that I'm a Jew, that I'm a quadruple CIA double Mossad agent, that I'm a homosexual, that I am all sorts of things. Like it's ridiculous. But as long as and I'm also getting paid millions of dollars by Sandy Hook Promise, and I'm working for the FBI at a special unit under Kash Patel with a whole bunch of people that produce all the videos that I put out there, and that artificial intelligence and a team full of people are putting out the thumb thumbnails for the videos that I do because they can't seem to understand how somebody could be so inspired to be as prolific as I am. Yeah, I'm a prolific artist right now because I'm on fire, because the world is on fire, and because I get enough sleep, I get enough food, and I have enough shelter, and the rest of my time is not spent on nonsense. It's spent on exposing the truth because we got to get at the truth. And these people, since they're all filled with lies and materialism, they can't understand inspiration. So they're literally filed a lawsuit. You could look it up. $60 million to shut down Rumble and BitChute because they say that Rumble and BitChute needs to take down my channels because my channels are what they deem political pornography and elder abuse because I'm posting videos of a guy, put it this way, you can actually find the video. He's claiming that I am 86 years old and that the reason I look so sharp is because I've had several facelifts and Botox. Also, that I'm living in Miami, Florida with my father, and that I'm living in New York at the same time with my mother, who's also dead. And that they know this because some private detective pulled up some 16-page rap sheet, which they're not allowed to post because when they tried to share it, the Florida Sheriff's Department said that's bogus. That's a fraudulent rap sheet. You can't do that. That's like illegal. I can't just like type up some stuff and say, "Oh, look, Regis Tremblay is a pedophile," and put it out there for everybody. You could get sued for that, you know. So these people are tiptoeing the line. What they're doing is, again, this is the so-called truth teller community. Sandy Hook Promise tells me that this guy did that he's 86 years old, facelifts and Botox. And the thing is, the people are so dumbed down with the fluoride, with the chemtrails, with the food poisoning, that they sit there and they believe it. They actually believe that I'm 86 years old. Artificial intelligence on Brighteon with Mike Adams, who I've been on his show and I've outed him. I said, listen, dude, you're censoring my videos on your Brighteon channel, which you're always claiming is free speech. Why, whenever I have a guest on who says that 6 million people didn't die during the Holocaust, you censor my videos? I thought it was a free speech platform. He doesn't respond. I've invited him on my show. I said, listen, I'll go on your show. You can ask me whatever you want. Silence. Somebody sent me a message the other day. They said, oh, if you go on Brighteon and you ask, is Victor Hugo the angel of death? Because now a Sandy Hook Promise source says that I am the angel of death, that I am the character assassin getting paid millions of dollars to expose Stu Peters, Jim Fetzer, SGT Report, and all these people. That's why I'm doing this, because I'm getting paid millions. So Brighteon, and you could look this up, they say that Victor Hugo Vaca Jr. graduated from a Venezuelan medical school in 1983. I was 13 years old in 1983, but whatever. It's artificial intelligence, and you've got to believe everything artificial intelligence tells you now because people are too dumb to look things up themselves. Then, the reason why I'm the angel of death is because I've killed a lot of my patients. Apparently, I'm trying to cure cancer using high doses of vitamin C. So I've been arrested in Colombia, I've been arrested in Peru, and I've been arrested in Venezuela and Ecuador. I've been arrested all over the place apparently, and yeah, so it's amazing. Now I'm a serial killer doctor out there. It's just
Yeah.
incredible, man. The stuff I find out about myself, I'm like, wow, I never knew I graduated at the age of 13 from a medical school in Venezuela. That's news to me. People believe it. And I contact Mike Adams. I said, hey, Mike, you may want to check your artificial intelligence because it's totally bogus. And nothing. They leave it on. So we're in a dangerous realm right now. The CIA said, we'll know we have accomplished our mission when nobody knows what to believe or who to believe. We're there now. And we need
Yeah.
to do something about it. Because
Yeah,
like,
that polluted.
yeah,
Yeah.
Uh, Victor, that's really an amazing tale. Um, you talk about censorship and you talk about all the lies. Um, I think what I've experienced here in Russia uh, is I've been shadow banned everywhere. YouTube deleted 650 of my videos, films, and podcasts 2 or 3 years ago. Um, and I used to have thousands and thousands of followers. Now it's like less than 1,000 anywhere that I am. Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, Substack.
Hey,
Uh,
but Regis, you need to make it clear that this wasn't the Russian government that did this. This was the West that did
Yeah, of
this.
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The enemy is not Russia or even China. The enemy is the United States and Israel. Those are the enemy, and that's what I found out living in China.
Absolutely.
And, like these
Absolutely.
yeah,
people have told me
Victor,
it's a hard.
I have to ask you this. Uh, I have for a long time held the belief that it's the United States and the British colonial empire that are
yeah,
still wed together.
Yes,
There's never been a separation. And then, thanks to Great Britain, the UK, for the creation of Israel, which
yes,
which then, according to my view, has now really captured all of it. Would you agree with that?
absolutely. I believe that it goes back to the Pharisees. Rome never fell. What they did was they just marketed themselves differently. So we're dealing with the Pharisees. We're dealing with the black nobility. And now what happened is they are the royal crown, which controls Canada and the United States. The United States was never freed. That whole thing was a scam. The Freemasons, George Washington, and all that stuff. Once you realize that it's always been about power. And in order
yeah,
to maintain the power, they have to feed people sweets and tell them lies. So they made people believe that they were independent. No way. But you're right. With the Balfour Declaration, they created Israel. Then they brainwashed the Jews. That's why, actually, when I say it's the Jews are just being used as human shields
yeah,
by these demons, if you want to call them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
I think they're reptilians or whatever, but they're aliens. They're feeding off of us. We're basically living on a prison planet. We feed them through our loosh. They live off of our fear, our anxiety, all that low energy frequency. They feed off of that. And also, they feed off the children. Most people don't report this, but like 200,000 children disappear, like just in the United States. And nobody says anything about this. People don't want to believe because some of this stuff is so horrific. There's adrenochrome. People live for a long time with adrenochrome. You see the Henry Kissingers and all these people. The reason why they live so long is because they're feeding off the blood of children. I mean, it's true. That stuff helps you live longer. Also, they eat babies. I know this sounds crazy and stuff like that, but in order to get to a higher level above the 33-degree Freemason, because there's higher levels than that, you have to do things. Part of it is killing people, and they have to get you on tape. Whether it's killing people or having sex with children, it's blackmail. That's how this game works, and it's a game. And most people are just living the rat race, going to work, working three jobs, just watching TikTok videos and stuff like that, and thinking that's the world that we live in. No, there are multi dimensions and there are multi-dimensional beings that are here feeding on us. They come through CERN, they come through alcohol, they come through in various ways, and they inhabit us. And so there's portals too. This stuff is ancient. You can see all this stuff happening. So yeah, it's the crown has control, but people that have been inside and seen the queen and the king and stuff, they've seen these people shapeshift. And I've had people on my show that are high level government, and they've been to meetings with high level people, and they're like, "Yeah, Victor, they're shapeshifters." And yeah, okay, so maybe people are making this stuff up, but I can't see how humans act the way
It's
that
their
they
blood.
act.
Their blood is Rh negative. It's just not even human.
Yeah, so all this stuff is suppressed, this information.
The royal blood is Rh negative blood.
Yeah. And then you see all that stuff, the cathedrals, that stuff was meant to heal people, and all this ancient history that's erased from us, and the stuff that's
yeah.
kept in the Vatican, because they don't want us to have this knowledge. But once we have this knowledge, I do believe we will have a better life, but they want to keep us suppressed. And that's what's happening right now. That's why I'm saying the main thing to save us is to get at the truth. We have to hammer at the truth because their lies
Yeah.
are so obvious. That's why they want to
Yeah.
shut my channels. If they succeed with this lawsuit, $60 million, that's going to shut down Rumble and BitChute because it's going to create a flood of lawsuits. Because now I can sue anybody who says anything about me. But the thing is, if I'm a public figure, it's out there. I can't really, I mean, it's like it's a lot of time and effort to sue people just because they're running around saying that I'm gay. So whatever.
Yeah.
Victor,
Oh.
uh, I have a final comment. I don't know, maybe Peter and Richard may also. What you just finished on is something that most people just cannot accept. Uh, you know, we are being controlled by beings that are not human. And as a former theologian, have done a great deal of research into a lot of ancient history, Samaria, uh, and people just can't wrap their heads around it. But I do really feel that there are amongst us people who have been transformed, but inside they are demons. They are
Yeah.
not of us. Richard talked about, the bloodlines, Rh negative. It's not human. Um, and I do agree that we're in a period of an epic battle between good and evil. And you have made it really clear what is good is the truth. What is good is love. The opposite of that is what is destroying us. Uh, Peter, Richard, uh, any final comments before we close it out tonight?
Yeah. Well, just to run over a few things. The Christian Zionism, what Victor was talking about. There's millions of them. Trump supporters, Christian Zionism, synagogue. They said they don't know that it's the synagogue of Satan. They're dupes. I'm talking what 30, 40 million in the United States. It's staggering. See, I just with Victor too, and his outing of this guy Fetzer. This guy Fetzer. Now, I've kind of been in the truth thing since 2005, especially about 911. And Sandy Hart is dear to me in research. I lived 8 miles from Sandy Hook, and I was right around when it all happened. And this guy, Jim Fetzer, that Victor is outing, he has been a gatekeeper from 911, even the Kennedy assassination, but a gatekeeper about Sandy Hook, and he muddies the waters of the truth. And he leads people down cul-de-sacs, dead ends, and and Victor has outed him the last few months. And I really want to applaud Victor for it because this guy has made anybody that was really seeking the truth or looking for the righteousness to happen, he's muddied the waters, this old man. He needs to be put in jail for the fraud he is. And Rebecca Carnes, a noted lady, housewife, outed him when she first. Fetzer had Rebecca Carnes on his show, Jim Fetzer or whatever, I forget the name of the show. He was Rebel Radio, one of them there, and Rebecca Carnes was starting to out the satanic nature of Newtown, Connecticut, and stuff like that, and the anomalies in 911. But she quickly understood where Fetzer was coming, so she called him out on that. Just as an example. But this guy here now, and what Victor's talking about now with this Dustin Nemos and these other truth tellers, the SGT report, all they can do to Victor, if you look at his stuff, is to attack his character They cannot attack Victor's information that he's putting out. Like he says, he just what he does, he goes live, and the people that are with Dustin Nemos, some of his followers are coming on the live chat and spilling the beans about who this guy is. So, and all these other guys, these phonies like this, no Nemos, these other ones, they're like rats that are, you've lifted the cover and the light is on them, and Victor's put the light on him. So he's really, the last few months have been on fire. Just kicked up a hornet's nest in the truth community. And people listen for hours and years. People like Alex Jones and Jim Fetzer, who and who Victor had this guy named Win. I can't remember his last name. He was a lawyer from Ohio. Win Young. Incredible. Because what happened was, if you look at that Alex Jones, he was sued and the families and supposedly were awarded $1 billion, and Alex Jones is going to be bankrupt and just crucified. And the same thing with Fetzer. He was awarded he was taken to court and
$500,000.
$500,000, $440,000 against Fetzer and all this. Like he
now
said,
it's over $1 million with interest. Now he hasn't paid it.
And the thing is these guys are sham. Alex Jones, his lawyers just flipped the other side and didn't even represent him. And the same thing with Fetzer. He pro-sayed the whole thing himself, and it was a joke. The whole thing was a joke. But
the reason
they're just grifters. These people they just look at, and then all of a sudden, when this whole thing started with Fetzer and Victor started exposing Fetzer and his round table of these freaks, so all of a sudden Fetzer's getting these donations of $25,000 and stuff like this. He's getting these big stuff. So it just shows that, I think Fetzer's on the dole somewhere, because every time an event happens, there's Fetzer coming in there, what do they call it, Professor Emeritus or whatever it is of psychology and whatever his doctorate is. Doctorate of gatekeeping is what it is. He's
Richard,
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for introducing us to Victor-Hugo.
Yeah. Victor, yes.
We're beyond an hour.
A hornet's nest. That's all I'm saying. He's opening up a hornet's nest, man. God bless you, Vic.
Thank you, Richard. I just want to add real quick for the audience. The reason why the Sandy Hook treason is so important is because Alex Jones and Jim Fetzer's job was to facilitate the end of the First Amendment, because it made it so that no journalist would dare cover the story of
those
Sandy
are
Hook.
sons of bitches that it, yeah. And to get a working database about anybody that wants to stand up to this tyranny and this fraud.
Yeah.
That's what it is all about.
Peter, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I know it's good to point out these guys, but I think we're past all the. I mean, at this point, we're not going to hold these guys accountable. These ones who have done this, like Alex Jones and others. I think we need to stay focused. I think on the original thought at the very beginning of this is a battle between good and evil, and we're now at a point where people need to wake up and they need to choose. And choose the good path. But I think that's one of the missions that we should stay focused on, is helping people wake up to the fact that this choice is going to come very quickly. Because if you look at, for years and years, this evil has stayed hidden, but it's not. They're openly coming out with their evil today, and they're not even trying to hide it anymore. So I think, and it's accelerating. So I think we need to stay focused on saying to people, hey, I don't believe any of these people who've done any of this bad stuff are going to be held accountable by the current system at all because the current system is broken. So I see the current system in the West is going to completely burn down. And that's why I'm so grateful that we have Russia and China and the people in the East because they don't want any part of what's coming in the West. So I think one of our missions is to help people in the West go, hey, you need to wake up and not be part of this nonsense and take action to protect yourself and protect your families from this um, these satanic forces. Because God help them if they don't. But I think most people in the West are. I think it's a very small portion of the population that's actually evil. I think most of the people are just sleepwalking and they're sheep. They've been brainwashed and they're not seeing the evil right in front of their face. But I think that's going to change very quickly. I mean, within a matter of months, we're going to see things spiral out of control, and the evil will be in people's faces. And at that point, they're going to have to choose wherever they are. I think.
Thanks, Peter. Richard, Victor-Hugo, this has been delightful. It's been a fascinating hour with you. I think I can express the thoughts of the three of us. We're very grateful to having you back. And Victor, I hope you can find the time to join us again very soon to keep drilling down on some of these points that we've talked about that most of the population need to travel down with us to understand what's really going on. Victor-Hugo, thank you so much.
I would love to join you guys again. Thank you so much for hosting me. I really appreciate it. And remember, everybody, united we stand, divided we fall. Never give up. Never surrender. Keep shining. Live, love, flow. Thank you, guys.